Something shifts in a woman when she turns 40, though few dare to name it. One morning she's making breakfast for the kids, folding laundry, planning the next family trip. The next she's browsing dating apps, buying new lingerie and texting a man from the gym. You stand there watching the person you thought you knew vanish before your eyes, and you ask yourself what just happened. This scene is repeating everywhere. Millions of men staring in disbelief as their stable, loving wives transform into restless strangers, as if a teenage spirit suddenly reawakened inside an aging body. Yet everyone acts surprised, pretending no one saw it coming, as if her biology hadn't been sending warnings for years. You think you understand your wife. You believe that after 15 years together, after children, a home, and all the storms you've weathered, she's immune to whatever invisible force steals other marriages. But you're wrong. Inside every woman ticks a quiet time bomb, psychological, biological, inevitable, and it goes off somewhere between 35 and 45. It doesn't maybe explode. It will. The only question is how much destruction follows when it does. Because the woman who reaches 40 is not the same one you married. This isn't about maturity, experience, or wisdom. It's about a complete rewiring of her emotional system, her brain chemistry, her desires, her very sense of identity. The woman who once found meaning in nurturing a family suddenly becomes consumed by a hunger she can't name. A hunger for validation, for proof that she still matters, that she can still be desired. That craving is powerful enough to undo years of stability in a heartbeat. From the moment she's born, society programs her to equate value with beauty, be lovely, be wanted, be chosen. For 20 years that program runs flawlessly. From 15 to 35 her reflection grants her status and control. Men orbit her like planets around a sun. Compliments flow effortlessly. The world tells her she's important simply because eyes follow her. But then, biology changes the rules. The glow fades, slowly but relentlessly. At 40 she stares into the mirror and doesn't recognize the face looking back. Not because she's unattractive, but because she no longer looks like the woman who used to command attention. The face that once turned heads now passes unnoticed. The body that once inspired obsession now receives polite, restrained smiles. And this isn't vanity, it's identity collapse. Her entire sense of self was built on being desired, and now that desire is evaporating like mist under the morning sun. Imagine being an athlete whose entire worth is built on physical performance. You've spent decades mastering your craft, and then one day, your body stops obeying you. You're not bad, you're just slower, duller, less electrifying. That psychological collapse is enormous. Now multiply it by 10 and you'll start to understand what's happening inside her mind when she realizes that her power, the power of attraction, is fading. But instead of accepting this natural transition, instead of shifting gracefully into a new phase of meaning, modern women panic. They fight time as if it were an enemy. They refuse to surrender to nature. And in that battle, the first casualty is often the marriage. At 22, a compliment was meaningless background noise. She'd roll her eyes, knowing it was inevitable. But at 42, that same compliment triggers an explosion of dopamine. It's confirmation that she's still visible, still capable of stirring desire. One flattering remark from a stranger can outweigh a decade of your loyalty. Why? Because your affection feels automatic. It's expected. His attention feels chosen, and that distinction changes everything. That's the hidden truth no one wants to admit. Married women over 40 are not drawn to infidelity because they're immoral, but because they're starving for something that has quietly disappeared. The intoxicating thrill of being chosen freely, without obligation. Your love doesn't count the way it used to because it's part of the contract. You're the husband, the father of her children. You have to love her, don't you? But the stranger at the cafe who smiles as she passes, that momentary spark feels like oxygen after years underwater. It's pure validation, a reminder that she's still in the game. And once she gets a taste of that attention, something changes. Not instantly, but irreversibly. Because now she remembers the rush of being pursued, the intoxication of being someone's fantasy rather than someone's habit. That memory becomes an addiction, one your stability and loyalty can never satisfy. You'll know the moment your marriage enters the danger zone. It's when she starts reminiscing about her past, not with embarrassment, but with tenderness. when she mentions her exes with a faint smile instead of disgust, when she recalls her single days with sparkling eyes, not with relief that they're behind her. That's the signal. That's when the countdown begins. Her mind is rewriting her history, searching for the last time she felt alive, and you, standing beside her, represent everything she's trying to outrun: routine, safety, time. Science explains the rest. A woman's brain doesn't stay still with age. It changes radically. The chemical reward circuits that once made her euphoric at 25 are barely firing by 45. What used to flood her with joy now barely registers. At 20, holding hands sent electric shivers through her body. At 40, she needs an emotional earthquake to feel the same tremor. The romantic dinners, the weekend getaways, the subtle gestures you think matter. Her brain categorizes them as maintenance, not magic. The kisses that once made her melt now feel like habit. Her neurological wiring demands stronger stimuli, risk, novelty, excitement to awaken the same sensations, and you, her safe harbor, have become too familiar to spark that reaction. You are dependable, constant, and invisible to the chemical storm inside her. This is why the most shocking betrayals often come after 35. Not because women suddenly turn cruel, but because they become desperate. Desperate to feel alive again, to prove to themselves that they still have power. The same woman who once smiled just holding your hand may now crave the chaos of an affair to feel something real. The same loyal wife of 15 years may act in ways she never imagined possible. I've seen it time and again. The mother who abandons her home for a personal trainer, the religious wife who burns her marriage for a fleeting fantasy. They're not driven by malice, but by panic. The primal fear that their best years have passed, that the world no longer sees them, that the mirror no longer loves them back, and so they reach for danger, for anything that reminds them they can still make the world stop and look. Because to a woman whose worth was once measured by desire, invisibility feels like death. You've seen it before. The devoted mother of 3 who vanishes into the arms of her personal trainer. The church-going wife who starts an affair with her husband's best friend. The perfect woman who detonates her life for a man she barely knows online. And every time the husband mutters the same line, "I never saw it coming." But how could he not? Did he really not notice her studying her reflection with quiet disgust? Did he miss how her eyes lit up when another man gave her the kind of attention she no longer expected? Did he not feel her pulling away emotionally, even as she went through the motions physically? The signs were there all along. Men just choose not to see them. It usually begins with nostalgia. She starts romanticizing her past, recalling her wilder years with a glow that wasn't there before. Old photographs appear from nowhere. Memories once buried return dressed in longing. Her stories about ex-boyfriends shift from embarrassment to something softer, almost tender. She isn't living in the present anymore. She's grieving the version of herself she once was. That's when the new companions arrive, the divorced friends who claim to have found themselves. But they're not offering friendship. They're pushing a drug called "You Deserve Better." They gather for wine nights that are really confessionals of resentment, where the same sentences are repeated like gospel. "I was trapped. I'm free now. You should be too." Through their bitter lens, your steady marriage begins to look like a cage. Then comes the slow corrosion of reality itself. Social media becomes her new mirror, showing her not who she is, but what she lacks. Hours pass as she scrolls through filtered perfection. Smiling couples, luxury vacations, women her age glowing as if untouched by time. The algorithm learns her weaknesses. It feeds her transformation stories. Brave women starting fresh. Radiant women finding love after 40. Every swipe confirms the same illusion. Everyone else is happier, freer, more alive, and it's not too late for her to join them. The metamorphosis begins subtly. It's not rebellion at first, it's self-care. A new skincare routine, a few cosmetic treatments she once swore she'd never try. Then it escalates, strict diets, hours of workouts, clothes that belong in her daughter's closet. She says she just wants to feel good about herself. But what she really wants is to turn back time. Every purchase, every mirror pose, every carefully angled selfie carries the same desperate message. I still matter. I still exist. It's not vanity. It's survival. And then, the emotional distance, the withdrawal. Suddenly she needs space. More alone time, unexplained plans. A wall grows between you, but it's disguised as independence. She's either irritable, constantly picking fights, or unnaturally sweet, too calm, too careful. Both are danger signs. Anger means she's building a justification for what she's about to do. Calm means she's already done it and is managing the guilt. What's maddening is how society rewards this unravelling. Every magazine cover, every talk show, every influencer tells her the same thing. You deserve to be happy. Don't settle. Find yourself. They cheer on her rebellion as if she's fighting a noble cause, not burning her own home. They tell her that her feelings matter more than her promises, her happiness more than her children's stability, her desires more than the wreckage she leaves behind. Nobody tells her the truth, that beauty fades for everyone, that attention is an addiction that must eventually be kicked, that meaning comes from building, not chasing. No one explains that the excitement she's craving is just chemistry, dopamine, adrenaline, cortisol, not destiny. Those butterflies she misses so much, that's anxiety, not love. The passion she longs for, it's novelty, not connection. But the world doesn't teach her that. It sells her a fantasy, empowerment slogans dressed in glitter. You go, girl. Follow your heart. Live your truth. As if a 40-year-old following a hormonal impulse is any different from a 16-year-old boy chasing a crush. Both are ruled by biology. Both make reckless choices. Both destroy what's real for a fleeting rush. Meanwhile, you're told to be understanding, to be patient, to work on yourself, to give her space while she redefines her life. You're told that if you just love harder, if you become better, she'll come back. But here's the cruel part. You could wake up tomorrow as the perfect husband and it still wouldn't matter. Because perfect is predictable, and predictable doesn't trigger dopamine. Her nervous system is addicted to novelty, not stability. The world won't tell you that her friends play a leading role in this collapse. The divorced ones she clings to, the empowered women who preach freedom between glasses of wine, aren't cheering her on out of love. They're addicts looking for validation. They whisper poison disguised as sisterhood. You deserve better. Life's short. You only live once. But what they really mean is join us in the ruin. Misery loves company. Watching another woman destroy her marriage reassures them that they weren't the only ones who made a catastrophic choice. Because nothing justifies a bad decision like seeing someone else repeat it. Watch closely when your wife starts spending more time with these friends. Ordinary disagreements suddenly become emotional abuse. Routine compromises become control. Every responsibility becomes an unfair burden. Through their narrative, your marriage transforms from a partnership into a prison. Your care becomes manipulation. Your stability becomes suppression. You become the villain in a story she's rewriting to justify her escape. And if those voices weren't enough, social media finishes the job. The digital world amplifies every insecurity until it's unbearable. She's no longer comparing your life to reality, but to fiction. She's measuring her days against the carefully staged fantasies of influencers and strangers. The algorithm becomes her therapist, whispering seductive lies. Leaving is brave, staying is settling. Happiness is just one leap away, and she believes it because she wants to. What she doesn't see, what the world hides, is the aftermath. The part after the applause fades. They never show the woman 6 months later when the new boyfriend reveals his flaws. They never show her spending holidays alone because the children chose to stay with their father. They never show her realizing that starting over at 40 isn't liberation. It's fatigue. They never show her lying awake at night, understanding too late that she traded deep love for shallow attention, permanence for a temporary rush. Men and women face middle age on different battlefields. When a man turns 40, the world tells him he's just hitting his stride, distinguished, wise, valuable. His experience becomes his allure. Even if his hair greys and his waistline expands, society whispers, "You've still got it." His worth grows with time. But for women, the message is the opposite. The world tells her she's expired, past her prime, invisible. Each birthday after 35 feels like a funeral for her youth. While men are told they age like fine wine, women are told they're spoiling milk. That difference in conditioning is what drives the chaos. Men age into confidence. Women age into fear. A man's midlife crisis usually ends in a new car or a trip. A woman's midlife crisis often ends in emotional carnage. Because hers isn't about reclaiming youth, it's about denying that youth is gone. And that denial costs everything. The difference between how men and women experience aging is everything. Men meet it with a kind of calm acceptance, even pride. Women meet it with dread. That's why a man's midlife crisis usually looks like a convertible, a new hobby, or a brief thrill before returning home. A woman's midlife crisis, though, it burns the foundation itself. She doesn't just chase youth, she tries to erase the evidence that time ever passed. She demolishes everything that reminds her she's been a wife, a mother, a grown-up bound by years of repetition. At 45, a man knows he could still attract women if he wanted to. That quiet knowledge, that lingering ability, is enough to soothe the fear of decline. He doesn't need to act on it. His confidence survives in potential. But a 45-year-old woman? She feels her last chance slipping through her fingers. That terror makes her reckless. She grasps at every opportunity, real or imagined, because not acting feels like surrender. This isn't about equality or fairness. It's about chemistry and psychology. Two entirely different blueprints for how men and women deal with mortality. His crisis humiliates him. Hers detonates her life. He buys a motorcycle. She burns a marriage. And then there's the rewriting. The way she edits the past after she leaves. Suddenly, the story you both lived together becomes a lie. We were never really happy. I was pretending the whole time. You were controlling. She must recast you as the villain so that she can be the hero of her new narrative. It's not malice. It's self-preservation. Because admitting she destroyed something good for the sake of a fleeting feeling would crush her. I once spoke to a man whose wife left after 18 years. She told everyone he was cold, emotionally abusive, distant. He was stunned. He still had the proof. Family photos full of laughter, anniversary letters filled with devotion, vacations where she clung to him in joy. All of it she now called fake, pretend. But she needed that lie to survive the guilt. She needed him to be the monster so that she could stand as the heroine in her reinvention story. And then there are the children, the quiet casualties of her war against aging. She tells herself they'll adapt, that they'll understand someday, that they'd rather see her happy than miserable. But children don't crave their parents' happiness. They crave stability. They want the walls of their world to stop moving. And when she tears that down, they're left with questions that therapy may take decades to answer. Why wasn't our family enough? Why wasn't I enough? What's striking is the timing. It's almost predictable. It happens when the kids no longer need constant attention, when she finally has free time again, when life should be gentler. That's when the explosion hits. Because for the first time in years, she can think, and that space, so long desired, becomes her undoing. She has time to compare, time to scroll through endless feeds of women who appear freer, prettier, happier. Time to remember the person she used to be, the one before the chores, before the minivan, before the sleep-deprived years of motherhood. That memory becomes intoxicating. She recalls the girl who was wanted, admired, radiant with possibility. And when she compares that memory to the woman she is now, ordinary, dependable, unseen, the contrast feels unbearable. It's not her real life that torments her, it's the fantasy she's measuring it against. The fantasy of eternal youth, constant excitement, endless desire. The illusion that there exists a version of her who could still make the world stop spinning. So she starts comparing you, the flesh and blood partner beside her, to the imagined men in her head. Men who would understand her, worship her, make her feel young again. She compares her reality to everyone else's highlight reel, the perfect vacations, the glowing selfies, the filtered romance of strangers online. She's not losing to the truth, she's losing to fantasy. And fantasy always wins because it doesn't have to survive in daylight. Then comes the most dangerous moment, the one every husband senses but can't stop. It's not when she starts craving attention in general, it's when that attention gains a face, a specific man. Maybe it's a co-worker who notices her new haircut, maybe an old flame slides into her messages, maybe it's her trainer who tells her she looks incredible. The name doesn't matter. What matters is that now her fantasies have a human anchor. It's no longer I could have options, it's he could be one. and that seed, once planted, spreads like a virus through every corner of her mind. She'll insist it's harmless, just a friend, just professional, just catching up. But you'll notice the subtle shifts. She mentions his name too often, or avoids it completely. She becomes possessive of her phone, defensive about small things you never questioned before. She oscillates between hostility and unsettling kindness, picking fights one day, being overly gentle the next. One means she's collecting reasons to justify leaving. The other means she's drowning in guilt for what she's already doing. The truth is brutal. Once that door opens, you can't close it. She might return after the fantasy collapses, after the new man reveals his flaws, after the dopamine rush dies, after she sees the wreckage she left behind. She might come back in tears, saying she made a mistake, begging forgiveness. But she won't be the same person. The woman who returns isn't your wife. She's a stranger wearing her face, haunted by memories that don't include you. Every touch is a comparison, every silence a reminder. I've known women who had everything: wealthy husbands, beautiful homes, healthy children, and still walked away for a bartender who made them feel seen. I've seen women obliterate 20-year marriages for 3 months of adrenaline with someone from the gym, not because their husbands were cruel, but because their husbands were familiar. And familiarity doesn't thrill a 40-year-old woman. Here's the tragic irony. Most of them know exactly what they're doing. They know they're shattering their families. They know they're breaking their children's hearts. They know they're exchanging something real for something temporary. But they do it anyway, because the fear of aging without one last story to tell, the fear of fading quietly, is stronger than love, loyalty, or logic. They justify it with the usual script. The kids will be fine. We grew apart. I deserve to be happy. But these are masks for a simpler truth. They chose ego over family, validation over loyalty, self-indulgence over responsibility. It's not about you failing as a man. It's about her failure to accept time. She's not running towards something better. She's running away from the mirror, from mortality, from the terrifying reality that youth cannot be resurrected. And that's the cruelest part. You become the embodiment of everything she's trying to escape. You're the constant reminder that years have passed, that she's not the same woman she once was. You represent the stability she now associates with aging, with limits, with the life she's trying to deny. So when she leaves, it's not truly about you. It's about her battle with time, and time always wins. Aging, irrelevance, mortality. You become the living embodiment of everything she's running from. Think about the cruelty in that. You were there when she was young, radiant, and overflowing with possibilities. You chose her when she had choices. You stayed when others might have wandered. You built a life together, shared laughter, raised children, survived the storms. And your reward for that loyalty? To be abandoned precisely when she should be grateful, when she needs you most, when she's frightened by the years closing in. You see the woman beneath the wrinkles, but gratitude requires wisdom, and panic is its opposite. What makes it worse is how the world applauds her while it destroys you. They call her brave, say she's living her truth, finding herself. Nobody shows the husband sitting in silence, explaining to his children why their mother now lives with another man. Nobody films the kids dragging bags between 2 broken homes. Nobody calculates the real cost of a woman's midlife rebellion. The modern woman was never equipped for this stage of life. She was raised like royalty, told from girlhood that she'd always be special, always desired, always have options. Nobody warned her about the inevitable wall, the point where youth fades and attention shifts elsewhere. Nobody told her beauty depreciates like a luxury car the moment it leaves the showroom. Nobody told her that male attention is a narcotic and withdrawal hurts. Nobody taught her that lasting love is built, not felt, that deep connection will always outlive fleeting excitement. Instead, she was raised on slogans: you deserve more, follow your feelings, happiness is everything. So when her feelings shift, when her happiness feels elsewhere, when the illusion of more beckons, she acts. Consequences, family, vows. All of it becomes collateral damage. I've told countless men the same hard truth. It was never about you. You could have been the perfect husband and she still might have left. You could have been careless and she might have stayed. Her decision isn't about your worth. It's about her battle with time. You were simply in the blast radius of her war against aging. The woman who once swore she'd love you forever wasn't lying. She meant it when she was 25, overflowing with hormones and attention. But the 40-year-old version wearing her skin is not that same person. Different brain chemistry, different fears, different priorities. The woman you married exists only in memory. What remains is someone who looks like her, but who thinks and feels in alien ways. And here's the most painful part. She'll never admit it. She'll never say, I destroyed my family because I couldn't face getting older. She'll never confess, I needed attention from strangers more than my children needed a stable home. She'll never whisper, my ego mattered more than my vows. Instead, she crafts a self-saving myth. She was the victim, the misunderstood heroine breaking free from oppression, reclaiming her light, living her truth. And you become the villain in her redemption story. The hardest truth for men to accept is that there's nothing they can do to stop it. You can't love her out of this. You can't reason her out of it. You can't therapy your way back to safety, because this isn't a marital conflict. It's an existential collapse. You're not up against another man. You're up against her fear of death, her terror of irrelevance. And in that battle, you symbolize everything she dreads: age, stability, predictability, mortality. Your very presence becomes unbearable because you remind her that time is real, that choices have consequences, that her story isn't endless. So what can a man do? First, recognize the signs early. If her entire identity revolves around her appearance, if she needs constant validation from others, if she cannot accept the quiet dignity of aging, you're standing next to a ticking device. Second, understand this isn't your failure. You cannot fix a person's relationship with time. You can't love someone out of their fear of the mirror. Third, protect what matters. Guard your children. Guard your sanity. Guard your future. Document everything. Secure your assets and prepare for impact. Because when a woman at 40 decides to burn her life down, she doesn't go quietly. She'll drag everyone into the flames: her husband, her kids, her legacy. The truth no one dares to say is simple. Modern culture did not build women for endurance. It built them for stimulation. They were conditioned to crave attention, novelty, and emotional highs, not discipline, patience, and perseverance. They were taught to confuse desire with depth, freedom with abandonment, self-expression with self-destruction. When the thrill of marriage inevitably cools, they interpret normalcy as decay and run. Of course, not all women fit this pattern. Some see clearly through the illusion. They understand that beauty fades but character remains. They know that attention is cheap and loyalty is priceless. They realize that being chosen once and kept forever is worth infinitely more than being chosen again and again only to be replaced. These women exist, rare, luminous exceptions. But culture is teaching their daughters to forget them. So if you're with a woman nearing 40, pay attention, not to her flirtations or her phone, but to her fear. Notice the restlessness, the nostalgia, the fixation on youth, the resentment towards stability, the sudden craving for validation. These are not quirks, they're warnings, because once that fear matures into panic, it's already too late. She'll detonate her life, and yours, just to feel young one more time. She'll sacrifice the years you built together, the home you made, even the trust of her own children, all for a fleeting illusion of being wanted again. Not out of malice, out of terror. Terror of fading, terror of being invisible, terror of becoming ordinary. And that, in the end, is the tragedy no one wants to name. She's not destroying you to hurt you. She's destroying everything to convince herself she still exists. So if it happens, don't say you weren't warned.